Every great leader wants to be there for their team. I think it goes without saying. But here's some hard truth. If you make yourself too available, it's inevitable that is going to backfire. Your time gets stretched too thin, decision making starts to slow down, and ironically, the very people you're trying to help may start depending on you way too much, more than you ever even expected. Today, we're tackling one of the most common leadership challenges: how to be accessible without being overwhelmed. We're going to cover why being always available, it can hurt you. It can hurt your team. We're going to talk about some practical ways to set boundaries and how to create a culture where people get what they need without needing you all the time.
This is the Champion Forum podcast with Jeff Hancher, the forum for leaders, champions, and dreamers.
This episode is brought to you by Bernice A. Schweiss, LLC. Bernice A. Schweiss, LLC was founded on the belief that the modern accounting relationship should be different. No matter where your business is in its growth journey, we are here as a trusted advisor, providing data-driven insights and consultative tax, accounting, and strategic planning services built to achieve your financial goals. Together, we can turn your passions into peace of mind. Visit berniceaschweissllc.com for more information.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Always appreciate you all joining in and allowing me to be a part of your leadership journey. I have mentored and coached some of the most amazing people, some of the best of class leaders that have the biggest hearts. I'm talking about, these are salt to the earth kind of people. These are the people that are genuinely good-hearted and they love people. And this seems awesome, right? I mean, I just described an amazing human, right? And I did. Well, it is awesome and it is great until it's not. So many of these leaders with these traits, they have a really hard time creating boundaries. And if you're listening, you know who you are. You know, you are that leader that, man, people just love you. They just love you. They like you. They like you for what you do. They like you for bringing the sheet cake in on their birthday. They like you for the confetti cannons. They like you. But they don't necessarily respect you. And I know that stings. But so many times these leaders with these big hearts, these I want to serve people, I want to give the people that I'm leading my very best. They have a hard time with these boundaries, and they chalk it up as, I want to be there for my people, Jeff. I want to be there for them. They define it as servant leadership. I'm always on. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to serve. I got a cape on with an S that stands for servant leadership. However, these are also the leaders that tell me that, man, am I burnt out? My gosh, there's just not enough time in the day. Hey, Jeff, you know what, man? I got to tell you, man, I'm just going to be vulnerable with you here today. I feel taken advantage of so often. For all I do for my team, to have them respond like that, to have them treat me like that, what a real stab in the back, they say. You know, there are risks of being too available. There are big risks. There are consequences, leader. Let's talk about them. How about that decision bottleneck that keeps happening? People start relying on you for everything instead of making their own decisions. Nobody's even making their own decisions anymore because they're relying on you for everything. You think you're doing them a big favor. You're really not. You're creating a decision-making bottleneck in your own organization because you're the only one that's ever making decisions. Very unhealthy. We talked about burnout earlier. Look, the audience size of this show, it stands to reason. There are people listening that are on their last leg. I mean, they are a smidge away from insanity. Constant interruptions that lead to exhaustion. There's this false sense of accomplishment that happens with this. I mean, look, I'm doing something good, right? I'm serving people. I'm caring for people. Can I say this to that leader that's listening today? Good is often the enemy of great. You've heard this before, right? I'm not saying that serving your people and being at their very beck and call is necessarily makes you a monster. But I would tell you this, it's going to hold you back from your leadership potential. There is not a leader alive that is meant to do it all and be everything for everybody on the team. It's not possible. It's not realistic. And quite frankly, you're holding your team back from being their absolute best as individuals. The other thing that will happen is a lack of authority. When you're too available, I'm always here. I have an open door policy, you say. Being too available can make people respect your time less. And why would they? Why would they respect your time when they know they can just open the door and come in no matter what? There comes a point, if this is you, that you will explode. And you can probably look back and with those explosion milestones, because this has already happened. If you've been in leadership a while and you are always available to your team, you've exploded already. That's already happened. You'll begin saying things like, nobody respects my time. And when you start going down that road of nobody respects my time, nobody respects me, now I feel disrespected, the very next step in this journey of explosion is resentful. Now I become resentful. Then you start actually passing blame to your team because they are disrespectful. They don't appreciate me. The question you really need to be asking in this moment, if I may, why wouldn't they come to me for everything whenever they feel like it? Why wouldn't they do that? I've empowered them to do that. I have not created a single boundary. I mean, isn't it human nature to look out for your own best interest? Have you thought of that, leader? Isn't that what most human beings do? Is they look out for their own best interest? Let's not start blaming them. I'm not saying that they couldn't be better people, but haven't we created this environment? I'm going to tell you something. I mean, look, if you're not driving or running on the treadmill, write this down, or when you get to a place, play it back. You might even want to voice memo this thing. This is going to release you. This is going to give you leadership perspective that you've never had before, and here it goes. People are not trying to hurt you. They are trying to help themselves. Here's why that's freedom for you. You can't ever be offended again. This isn't personal. They're not trying to hurt you. They're trying to help them. Why wouldn't they come to you if you're going to constantly give them answers, if you're constantly going to be doing their work, if you're going to constantly make life easier for them? Why wouldn't they keep interrupting your meetings that you're in, opening the door to your office when it's closed, texting you, do you got a minute? And of course you do. Hey, I need to talk right away. Call me when you can. Stop everything. Call them. Why wouldn't they do this? You're sitting over here resentful. They're just trying to help themselves. They are not trying to hurt you. This should give you a great sense of freedom to reframe your mind. They're not trying to hurt me. They're trying to help them. It's my job as the leader to set the boundary. When you truly capture this perspective, you will be far less emotional and you will certainly be less defensive in these moments. When we go down this road too far, we're creating helpless people. Your team they're done solving problems on their own because they know if it gets bad enough, you know who's coming to the rescue? You are. The leader is. So you know what? We can just sit over here helpless. Let's just ride this thing out. We don't really need to solve these problems. When it gets bad enough, they're coming. They're coming. He, she, you leader, you're coming to save them, right? So we got to be careful with this. I had a client one time. The irony of this, you can't make it up. The reason that this client wanted me to coach them and what they wanted to tackle first in this coaching relationship was time management and focusing on the right activities. I want to be more productive, Jeff. I got more to do in a day than I have time. I need to find productivity. I need to make sure that I'm focusing on the things that are going to move the needle the most. And I need help really defining what that is. All right, so the stage is set. Here we come into our first call, and I'm ready to go. I'm ready to dive into Eat the Frog and, all of these things so that we can kind of dissect, do a little time journaling. Very first call that we're on, I get this. Hey, Jeff, can you give me 1 minute? There goes the mute button. I was so glad they left it on video, though. Somebody comes into their office. Now, in my mind, my client, first call, they're having a conversation with somebody. I can see it in the video. I can't hear anything because it's on mute. And there's like this little side meeting going on. I mean, here goes 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes. I'm like, what in the world? That must be their boss. I mean, this is awkward. We're having our very first meeting. Not a great first impression. But I'll tell you this, if it was my boss, I kind of get it. And so I say, they come back on, hey, Jeff, thank you so much for your time. Really, really apologize for that. I said, oh my gosh, no problem. Is everything okay? I mean, in my mind, the building's on fire, right? Somebody had to barge in and tell you to get out before you die in the building. He's like, yeah, it was one of my guys. He had a question about, preventative maintenance on one of the machines out in the plant. I said, what? I said, hey, I know we just met. I know this is our first call. Just to help me understand, was your door closed? He said, yeah. I said, so people just open your door and come in? Well, if it's important. I'm like, was that important? I mean, not really. I'm like, oh my gosh, we have some work to do. And I know this is hitting some nerves of some people that are listening in, but I got great news. There's great hope. You can fix this. But you have become controlled. Your calendar has become controlled by the people on your team. And why wouldn't I just open the door that's closed and interrupt a meeting that you're in when you allow me to? Because I just need a quick answer on this preventive maintenance thing. Why wouldn't I do that? So let's talk about some ways that you can stay accessible but not allow it to overwhelm you. The first thing that you have to do is define your accessibility. And who does this? You do. You do this. You set specific times when you're available for questions or meetings. These are the times. Now look, this is outside of emergencies, but these are the dedicated times that I can be reached. Hey, another great reason to have these one-on-one meetings. If you've been listening to this show any length of time, you have heard me say this countless times, the value of the one-on-one connection. What this does is it helps you control your calendar. Now they know they're meeting you Friday at 9 o'clock. Now they come, hey, do you have a minute? Now you can respond with, can it wait till Friday at 9? Is it critical? Is it urgent of nature? Can it wait till Friday? No, it can't wait till Friday. Then you have that one-off meeting and you say, listen, if this ever happens again, I'm letting you know ahead of time, something like this, it can wait until Friday at 9. This is not an emergency. This is how you start to take control of your calendar. The other thing that you have to do as a leader is you have to empower people to make decisions. Encourage your team to come up with solutions, not just delivering you problems. And they will just deliver you problems if you're always fixing the problems. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they just pass you the hot potato to deal with, right? Not that problems are bad. I'm not here to say, and look, I would not recommend becoming the leader that says, don't come to me with problems. I mean, there are times that you do want people to come to you with problems. You don't want to be out left in the cold on problems necessarily. But what we do want is we want a healthy culture that people are starting to come up with solutions on their own. We want to encourage critical thinking, not just going and getting answers and going and tell me what to do and going. No, we're going to empower you to think critically. We want to foster this environment on our teams as leaders where there's not just one way to communicate either. There are multiple ways to communicate. And that communication is directly in reference to what it is that we need to communicate about. Rarely is there ever a time that somebody should be opening a leader's door, barging into a meeting that they're already in because they have something to say. Like that should be, look, if that ever happens, my wife called the secretary and said she passed out and fell down the steps. Okay, barge in, doesn't matter who I'm talking to. Yeah, let's do it. The roof just blew off the building. Okay, come on in, right? But we need to set what these parameters are. And the level of communication should be appropriate to the sensitivity of the topic. Should we be having a meeting for everything? Should we be jumping on a Teams or Zoom meeting for everything? Should we all be huddling into the conference room so that we can talk about preventative maintenance on that one piece of equipment today? Probably not. Some things can be just done with an email. Maybe it's a voice memo. By the way, I'm loving voice memos. I mean, I love these voice texts because sometimes text, like there's a place to text somebody, but sometimes that text, it can lose its tone and heart. So now I got this voice text. I've had people call me and leave a voicemail and I voice text them back. You know why I do that? Because I know if I get on the phone with them, what could have been done in 60 seconds is now done in 5 minutes because custom says, hey, how are you doing? How's the kids? How was your week? Did you catch the big bass? I don't got time for all that. I'm just shooting out a voice text. That's it. That's what's warranted here. I just need to know, does Control-Alt-Delete really work? And what's the next part of the system? That's all I need to know. I don't want small talk right now. Things are moving too fast. We've all had that team member that defines everything as urgent and needs to physically talk to us right away. You know who I'm talking about? You got that person on your team? That person exists everywhere. If your team has a question that isn't urgent, have them write it down and then bring it up in that scheduled check-in. And you, as the leader, need to coach them on what this looks like and help them redefine what an actual emergency is, what actual urgent means. And I know, you hear this from me a lot, and I'm not getting off this soapbox. Schedule the one-on-one meetings. Not only is this great leadership, and it's a great way to make deposits into people, it is a great way to manage your schedule. I'm not getting off this soapbox. As long as you keep listening to this show, I'm going to talk about why you should have a mentor, and I'm going to talk about why you should be having one-on-one connection with everybody in your company. Everybody in your company needs to get this one-on-one meeting. Everybody on your team needs this. I'm not saying daily. I'm not saying weekly, but they need the connection. So how do you grow in this area as a leader so that I'm not always just, feeling like the tail is wagging the dog kind of sense? This doesn't feel right and I'm exhausted. Some would call it the inmates are running the asylum. Well, you got to audit your time. Have you ever tracked how often you're being interrupted? And have you looked at that and then started making a plan to adjust? I will tell you, this time journaling thing is a thing of bliss, because it uncovers how much wasted time is in your week of taking these little one-offs. These little, hey, boss, you got a minute? Or no, better is this one. Do you have a quick minute? Like, what's that? I've never seen a quick minute, because it's usually a quick minute is usually 15 minutes minimum, right? You know what I'm talking about. This could be happening to you, and you don't even realize it. You're just looking back Friday at 5:30, 6 o'clock p.m. and saying, I can't believe I didn't get anything done. Look at all this work that I got to take into the weekend. Here comes the burnout. Here comes the resentment. Here comes the frustration. You got to take control of your calendar. Ask yourself, are these interruptions that I'm allowing to have happen, are they urgent? Could they have been handled without me? You got to, as a leader, look for patterns. Do the same people or issues keep coming up? Same issue over and over. Same person opening the door and barging in. Same person, you got a quick minute. That's a sign that you need better delegation, or you might need clearer expectations with those specific people or those specific issues. Set clear communication expectations. This will give you so much relief. You and you alone are the person on the team that defines what is urgent versus what's important versus routine. And then you communicate this to your team. The definition of an emergency could be grossly different between what you define it as and what your team defines it as. You, the leader, need to define it. Now, you can ask them your thoughts. What do you think is? And we gain agreement on what an emergency is. But now we have a baseline. And encourage people. Look, batch these non-urgent questions. Batch them all up. Instead of interrupting me multiple times throughout the day, batch them up because we're meeting Friday at 9. And even if they're 2 weeks out from their one-on-one and it's required, they still need to batch them because I don't want to be, it's kind of like death by jab. It's like God, I'm just getting jabbed over and over and over. And although I'm not getting knocked out, it hurts. And it's agitating me throughout this. I'm going to batch all of these. I'm going to sit down with you for 15 minutes. I'm going to knock 5 things out instead of this constant interruption. We have to live in compartments of time throughout our day. And practice as a leader this not now moment. Not now. Not now. Not right now. Delay responses. When you delay a response, it can be magical. And do this. When it's a non-urgent, by definition emergency, delay your response. Do not move fast. It encourages independence because they may not want to wait. They may lose patience. And sometimes, not all the time, they'll start to take action. And brace yourself because this is not going to go over well at first because you have trained them that you're at their beck and call. So at first, there's going to be some heartburn. So get yourself a couple cases of Tums and stay the course because over the long haul, this is going to give you phenomenal leadership effectiveness. Here's another thing that I have found with this scenario of this delay, this not now, is that so many times they end up finding the answer on their own when you delay. Here comes that text or that email. Hey, boss, need to talk to you as soon as possible. Do you? Do you really? As soon as possible? I see your 16 font. I got you. I see your red font, escalating this thing. I'm just going to let this thing sit. I'm going to let this thing sit just a couple of minutes. And look, here's the thing. If it is an emergency, someone's going to bust through the door. So don't worry too much about it. But oftentimes, when I finally respond to them, here's what I hear. You know what? I figured it out. Or I went down to Sally's office. She was able to help me. Don't just run to the beck and call. Sometimes I feel like if we're not careful, leaders can be used as answer and problem-solving vending machines. Let's just pull that lever and get what we want out of the vending machine. We're the vending machine. Got a problem? Call the boss. Need it now? Call the boss. Do this? Boss. Want that? Boss. 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 Now listen, here's the other thing. Your ability to scale as a leader is now minimized. You think you have earned the right to get a bigger org chart, bigger title, when you can't manage the calendar that you have? And listen, if this is you, not alone. I have faced this journey myself, which is why we're having the conversation today. But don't do anything fast sometimes. High percentage of the time, they're going to be very resourceful and they're going to figure it out. Train your team to think critically. Here's a great shift that you can help people help themselves. Instead of going down this road of, hey, Brad, here's what I think. Shift the little piece of that and go this direction. Brad, what do you think we should do? What do you think? Hey, boss, I got this big problem. Wow, thanks for presenting that to me. What do you think we should do? Versus here's what to do. Here's what I think you should do. You have become the vending machine. Use this coach before you solve method. Have you heard of this? Coach before you solve. This is when we're guiding people to their own answers instead of just handing them solutions. This is this teach them how to fish moment. And why are we not good at that as leaders sometimes? Why? Because it takes a little bit longer. I can just feed you the answer, vending machine, and get back onto my day because I got a whole lot to do. Or I can coach before I solve and go through this diagnostic. But I will tell you this. Do you want to win short term or do you want to win long term? Do you want immediate gratification or do you want a culture of sustainability? Something sustainable that's going to be foundational for the long haul is going to take some investment of your time. But these are the leaders that make leadership look easy. They make it look easy. Why? Because they've been making these deposits. Not only is it exhausting being on all the time, being accessible all the time, but here's the other way that I want you to frame this in your own mind. You are literally holding your team back from growth, and you may not even know it. We can't be at their beck and call. We have to empower decision making as we delegate, as we let them critically think. We need to clearly define for them what decision making authority they have on the team and what is allowed to be handled without us. That could be a dollar amount in the budget, how much they can spend. There could be these parameters that they can work in. This is freedom. This is absolute freedom. You know, we just brought a part-time person on. I don't want to manage them. I don't have time to manage them. The person that's managing them, because they are part-time, I said, I don't care what you assign to them, but their budget is 20 hours a week. If you're under that, I don't even want to hear about it. If you feel like you need to go over 20 hours because of a special assignment, you got to let me know. These are the parameters that you can build. But even despite these, people are still going to be coming to you with, hey, boss, can you help me with this? Hey, boss, can you do this? Hey, boss, can you do that? Here's 2 questions that you can use that will help free up some of your capacity. When these tasks or asks come to you, the first question that I want you to ask yourself is this: am I the only one that can handle this task? Am I the only one in the entire organization that can handle this task? And I'll bet you'll find a high percentage of the time the answer is no. Notice I didn't ask, are you the person in the company that can handle it the best? That's not the question. I'm asking, are you the only one that can handle it? Question number 2, if this task fails, can I live with it? Now, Mr. Perfectionist, Mrs. Perfectionist, you got to be real with this. If this task fails, can I live with it? You know, short of it being we're going to lose our biggest customer, we're going to hit our annual projection, you know, crazy things like that, sometimes you got to let the plane crash, and that's okay. You are not here to be all things to all people, and it's not sustainable. Build a culture of ownership. Make accessibility about guidance, not constant availability. The risk of not doing this well is that you end up being the one that is doing versus being a great leader and empowering other people to grow. And remember, just because you can do something, and even if you're the best at it, doesn't mean that you always should. So as we wrap up, here's what I know about great leaders. They do make themselves available, but not at the cost of their own effectiveness or their team's independence. If you always on your team, in your company, are always the go-to person, it might feel good in the moment because you're solving problems and there's some immediate gratification that comes with that. But I promise you, when I tell you this, in the long run, you're literally holding everybody back. The key is balance. As with most things, being there for your people without being owned by their every need, that's the intricate balance that we're fighting for. Remember, great leaders aren't just available, they're intentional. They guide, they empower, they create teams that thrive with or without their constant input. You can't be the leader that's always the one fanning the flame into success. You need to empower others so that you can multiply. Take these steps. Start shifting your approach, even if it's slightly, and watch your leadership impact grow. As always, I hope this episode challenged you. If the show is helping you grow in any way, how you could say a very small thank you to me is share this show with one other person in your life. My heart, my intention It has not changed one bit. I want to impact as many leaders as I possibly can to help them lead, inspire, and win in this life. Sharing the show with someone else in your community, it would be a great way to help me accomplish my vision. I'm so grateful for this podcast community. I find it a great privilege to serve you all every Thursday when this episode comes out. Until next week, love your team, but use caution with your accessibility and how available you are to them, and never stop turning that pressure into potential.
The Champion Forum Podcast with Jeff Hancher. Lead, inspire, win.